In today's video, I will be explaining my day trading strategy that I use almost every day when I trade. I will be explaining the signals that I get from my indicators, the pre-charting to start the day, and how I look at higher time frames to get a general bias of where the market is going to be heading during the day so that I can enter my trades on the lower time frame. And let's get into it. Now, the strategy that I use for now is I use a trend strat. I trade the trend. I ride the trend like I'm surfing on a wave. I don't counter trend trade, and I enter my trade when my indicators give me a signal. I hold in onto that position, whether it's a short or a long, and I manage my risk from that point on. If you want to see an example of how I manage my risk, I recommend go watching my previous video on risk management with a live example. Now let's get into how I enter my trades and how I basically do my trades. So I have an example from last Friday, which was January 12th. It's the same example I have from the video on my risk management with the live example, but this time I will be thoroughly explaining how I enter the trade instead of managing my risk. So we have the 1-minute chart, the 2-minute chart, and the 5-minute chart. And over here, we have the weekly chart and the daily chart. So let's get into the higher time frame pre-chart to get a general bias of where the market's going to be heading during the week and during the day. So on the weekly, it was during this week, and as you can see, it was going into this, bouncing off this line of support on this fast moving average during the part of the end of the week was around this area, and on the daily that was on this candlestick right here, and as you can see, it was bouncing around the fast moving average at 16,966, which is about right over here, 16,966. So I saw this, I saw it was getting into support on the weekly, and as you know, the weekly and the daily have a stronger support and resistance lines because they are the institutional levels. So I saw it going into support on the weekly. On the daily, I saw it heading into the same support, so I decided to have my general bias of it's going to be a long day. Also, if you look in the daily on the previous charts, you have your trend. You have your trend. It went up, came back down, rejected, went up, came back down, rejected, and started going up again. And it made a higher low, which means it made a higher low from here, and it made a higher low in here too. And this low is higher than this low, so that tells you you're in a trend. And I mean, if it's not obvious enough, you know, you're going up with rejections bouncing off. And yeah, so that's how I knew we were entering into a long day from the signals I got on the weekly and daily. So I have my general bias now. It's going to be a long day, or should be a long day at least. Now let's get into the lower time frames so I can at least enter my trades. Here we are on the lower time frame. Like I said earlier, this is the 1-minute, 2-minute, and 5-minute. So on the 5-minute, I saw around here, it kind of bounced around on this moving average, but I don't trade before 7:30 or 8 o'clock, so I just look at where it's, kind of going. It went down into the moving average, went below the moving average, and then went back above the moving averages. And what I did is I saw this candlestick right here that is started really push up out of the moving averages, so I noted that down, that you had a big bullish candlestick going up. Over here on the 2-minute, you had the same thing. you had to go into the moving averages, bounce around the moving averages, below the moving average, and back above the moving average. So I decided to take my trade around this level over here. Where is it? And on the 1 minute, same thing, kind of bouncing around, but I got my two signals here. Now we're above the moving averages. I'm seeing a turnover on the oscillator, however the hell you say it. And same thing over here. I saw energy going on the upside. It started reversing. Then over here on the 1 minute where we actually enter the trade, which was right here, it broke above the moving averages, and the green moving average crossed this darker green moving average. So then I took the trade, a long trade, got in at 16,981, went all the way up to 16,995, 14-point trade. It did come down and retest, but as you can see, it never broke below the moving average. Same thing over here, never broke below the moving average when it came and retested. Same thing over here, didn't even come down to the moving averages to even test it. So it was a really good trade. I traded with the trend, and that's basically how I took this trade. I have another example, which is over here on January 11th, the day before, at 10:54, which is right over here. So on the 5 minute, you had a close above the momentum shift. You had the green, the bright green moving average cross over the dark green moving average, and I marked that down on the 5 minute. Over here on the 2 minute, same thing. You had a close above the momentum shift. You had the support from the green moving average. But over here, I could have taken the trade earlier on the 2 minute, as we had a break out of the moving average, and you had the crossover from the bright green crossing over the dark green. I could have entered the trade here, but I'm looking at this area to make it more secure with the 5 minute. And on the 1 minute, it was right around here or so. It was a 10:54 trade. 10:54 is right around here, right there, and enter basically here. 10:54. You had your signal. You could have got in at 9:40. Nice trade, 9:40, but if you're really trying to match everything up on the time frames, you're gonna go with the 5 minute. 5 minute matches up with the 2 minute, 2 minute matches up with the 1 minute. They all are in sync, so that's how you know it's gonna go up high, which it did. It went from 9:15 all the way until 9:50. 35-point trade. And yeah, if you held on to it longer too, it would have gone all the way from 9:15 to 9:83, which is like a 66-point trade or so. Really large trade. And yeah, those are two examples, and next week I will have a more in-depth video on how I trade the trend, as next week we should have a good week, as I explained in my previous video on the weekly forecast of the market. And yeah, that's basically it. That's my overall strategy that I use. And if I have another one, if I come up with another one, I'll be sure to inform you guys on it, and that's basically it. I trade the trend, I don't counter trend trade, and I really don't trade anything else, as trading with the trend is the strongest trade you can take because that's what the institutions trade. And that's basically the whole video, just explaining how I trade with the trend. And make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.